Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upward Thinking Podcast. I'm Andrew Fitzpatrick, and I'm here to deliver you all the latest news from Christianity, politics, from USA and the world. Let's get to it. First thing I want to talk about today is the same way we started last week, and that's the government shutdown. Government shutdown is now at 10 days, 18 hours. It's getting crazy. It's getting hard to think about all the consequences that come from this. But the main thing I can think of is just the military not getting paid. But that is changing now, as just 2 hours ago, it's been I guess 3 hours ago, Trump ordered the Pentagon to use, quote, all available funds, end quote, to ensure troops are paid. It's from the AP News. Trump says he will pay troops despite government shutdown, from New York Times. Trump says administration has, quote, identified funds, end quote, to pay troops during shutdown. So the military is now getting paid. But what is scaring me is, what I hope doesn't happen, is that the government kind of gets lazy about trying to reopen the government, because now that the military is getting paid, that's what most people care about. And I think it was yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, the federal worker furloughs have started. Many federal workers have been furloughed already. So that's what Trump said was going to happen. For when the government shut down, they would no longer have they would be having federal worker layoffs, and those have started a couple days ago. Says, this was from NPR one day ago, Trump administration says about 4,200 federal employees face layoffs. That was from a day ago. So, and that's not saying much, because there are 2.93 civilian federal workers. Sorry, 2.93 million civilian federal workers. So it's not saying much that 4,200 have been furloughed, but that's 4,200 people who no longer have a job and have to find new jobs. And I will say, I am not saying that I want there to be 3 million federal workers. I am 100% in favor of smaller federal government. But these layoffs are forced upon the government because of the lack of funds. This is not in the interest of smaller government. This is coming from a lack of funds. So 10 days, 18 hours. And this is still just partisan defiance, where the Democrats won't vote for the Republican bill, the Republicans won't vote for the Democrat bill. And you're having votes pretty much every day, except when the Congress is out of session. But how long is this going to last? How long is it going to take for them to finally agree on a bill to reopen the government? The longest government shutdown lasted for somewhere in the 30s days, and that was during Trump's first term. We're at 18 already, and it's not looking like we're having any promising leads. So I don't know how long this could last. It could be a while before the government is reopened. So that could be it could be it'll be interesting to watch and see what happens. So what I want to shift to is more of a sports thing. The I think the most exciting player to watch so far for me this season is Cam Skattebo. Man, he is lighting it up. And he is just crazy, man. And this is from a New York Post saying that says, quote, psychopaths, end quote, Jaxon Dart and Cam Skattebo are already changing Giants' DNA. Both of them take way too many hits than I feel like they should, especially for Jaxon Dart as a quarterback. He should not be taking that many hits. I think they should definitely work to protect their quarterback a little more, but it's fun. It's it's fun watching Jaxon Dart just hand the ball off to Cam Skattebo and just watch him just tear down the field and run over people. And then there was a video of him just pancaking a Saints D lineman. When was the last time you saw a running back just slam into a D lineman and pancake him? It was he's just really fun to watch. And so it'll be exciting to see the rest of his season and just see his career, see how long he can last. Him and Jaxon Dart. I mean, when Jaxon Dart was at Ole Miss, they were they were saying the same thing, like, man, he needs to slide more. He's taking too many hits. And then when he got hurt on Thursday, he was he was in the tent for a few plays, and Russell Wilson came in to play quarterback, and you saw the Giants head coach go over and start screaming at the trainer, wanting to know when Jaxon Dart was going to be back on the field because Russell Wilson did not play very well in his few plays that he played. But yeah, man, I think Giants have turned it around. I think it'll be really fun to watch them this season. Shifting gears again to the Church of England. This was a little bit ago, but they elected a female Archbishop of Canterbury, which there's never been a female Archbishop of Canterbury before. But it's looking like Church of England might be in a little trouble. And not necessarily just because of the female Archbishop of Canterbury, but mainly the left takeover of the UK, because the Canterbury Cathedral now has graffiti that has been artificially placed inside of the cathedral. And this one says, "Where does love come from?" And this is one of the most famous cathedrals in the world. and there's graffiti on it, on the inside. And it's like the design of normal street graffiti. This one says, God, what happens when we die? I mean, I think if you read the Bible, you can figure that one out. So, why do we have graffiti on the inside of the Canterbury Cathedral? This one says, do you ever regret your creations? So, talking to God? Because God's perfect. He doesn't make mistakes. He does not regret anything. It's just it's sickening that this is where Christianity is headed, to where we have graffiti inside of churches. And yes, people can make fun of evangelicals for having churches in strip malls, but at least they have a church. If you're going to make fun of them, why are they not making fun of churches in China that have to meet in basements because they have to have a secret church meeting? So I think we shouldn't make fun of people for where they have church, but I do think that we should look at how people are treating their church building. Because why are we putting all these sacrilegious and just unnecessary graffiti markings all over the church? This Facebook user said graffiti makes Canterbury Cathedral resemble, quote, underground car park. We got one of the most famous churches in the world that looks like an underground parking lot. It's just unfortunate. I think I think that Christianity is on the rise among young people, at least among my generation, but I'm scared that the older generations are going to halt that rise with how they're acting within Christianity. Um so I just want everyone to stay rooted in scripture because it's going to be difficult. Be in the world but not of the world. Stay rooted in scripture. Just keep following God. It'll work out. So next thing I want to talk about is um the meeting between Donald Trump and President Xi being canceled. Um Xi Jinping had issued some warnings and I believe they put some new tariffs or restrictions on us. Yeah, massive increase. Oh no, that was Trump. It just says China's hostile move. I'm not sure what he did. I'm not seeing anything that explains it at the moment. But so anyway, in a retaliatory move, whatever that may be, or whatever that may be caused by, Trump put 100% tariff, or at least this says he announced and threatened 100% tariffs, but also this says that he didn't actually cancel the meeting yet. This says Trump said there was, quote, no reason to meet, end quote, with Xi, but he clarified that he has not canceled the meeting. Okay, here we go. To limit access to rare minerals. So that's what China did. China limited our access to their rare minerals. And that's why China is so far ahead of us in AI and technology, is because they have those rare minerals to make the computer chips, all kind of that stuff, because we have the brains, we have the workers, we have the infrastructure, but we need the rare minerals from them. And that's why it's so important that we get this trade deal figured out, because if we don't, we're going to be way behind in this kind of AI technology race that's happening at the moment. And so 100% tariffs on Chinese imports. So we'll see what happens to that. But these tariffs, every time Trump throws on tariffs, the market just goes crazy, and so does crypto. Because I mean, the Dow yesterday, the Dow went down 800 points yesterday. 878. So really, it's almost 900 points yesterday. Almost 2%. Over the past 5 days, it's gone down 1,300 points. And so, and then Bitcoin went down 2% today. It's down almost $2,400. But why does the market just freak out every time Trump announces some sort of tariff? Because I know at least Trump's plan is for the tariffs to protect American businesses. But if he were to put a tariff on every single import into the country, what would happen is that the American products that are currently more expensive than the cheap Chinese products, they would stay the same price unless they're using foreignly imported goods to make those products, which in that case, they'll rise as well. But if he were to put a tariff on everybody, then the American-made products, American-sourced, American-made products would stay the same price. The foreign imported products or material-made products would raise in price, possibly to be more expensive than the American products. Not necessarily, but possibly. And then people, if they went higher, people would start buying the American products, which then with supply and demand, you got a high demand and probably a high supply as well. So you can lower the price. But that would take a while because that demand has to get high first in order for that price to lower. And so it would be difficult for people to understand in the moment. But if Trump was allowed to put these tariffs without having federal judges cancel them, then he would be able to lower prices while also protecting American businesses. It would just take a little bit for it to get going. And that's what people don't understand. That's why the market is going down, because people see tariffs and they think, oh, that's just a price increase on everything. No, it might look like that initially, but when you give the market time to settle down, that's when you see American business shoot up and you see American made products pricing start to go down. And so there was an $18 billion market sell-off. This says 19 billion coming from that 100% tariff threat. And Bitcoin is down to $111,400. If we look at October 7th at 2 a.m. or at 1 a.m., Bitcoin was at $125,000. So we got a $13,000 decrease in the past 5 days. At 1:30 p.m. on October 10th, yesterday afternoon, at 1:30 p.m., Bitcoin was at 122,000. At 8 a.m. this morning, Bitcoin was at 110,500. So it lost $15,000 in about 3 days. And it lost $12,000 in less than 24 hours. Because people are panicking about the tariffs. When you look at American history, you see tariffs all the time in American history. Before income tax, well, I just want to say that income tax was originally illegal, but they made it legal and got rid of tariffs and started taking an income tax. That's one tax that I am very against, is income tax. Because you go to work, you do your job, you get paid by your boss or your company, and the government takes some of it. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why do we need so many taxes? Because the government is spending so much money. There's a reason why we're $37 trillion in debt. Because the government is spending so much money that we don't have. When we stopped having a gold-backed dollar, that's when inflation boomed. Because Congress and the Mint was printing money that we didn't have. And now they're using money that we don't have. When are people going to realize? And that's the same thing as like a credit card, where people will use their credit cards to purchase things that they don't have the money to pay for. And so you see these people who are buying, say, a fridge or a couch, money to pay for that. And so then they start racking up credit card debt, and then they get in trouble because that debt just keeps building, and they have even less money to pay it off than they had when they first got the credit card bill. So everyone's the same in this. The citizens are acting just like the government. Government's spending money we don't have. The government is printing money that we don't have. And I'm glad we finally realized that the penny is useless. Costs 5 cents to make a 1-cent coin. I don't know why it took so long for someone to realize that's not a smart idea. So I I just think we need kind of a come to Jesus moment in our government around finances, because it's getting out of control. And the same thing with the government shutdown, because I'm not sure if this government shutdown applies this scenario, but I know at least in the past, the way that the government has avoided shutdown is by increasing the debt ceiling. Well, the whole point of having a debt ceiling is so that you don't spend more money than you allocate for yourself in a certain time period. So you have the certain amount of debt that you can reach, and once you reach that amount of debt, you can't spend any more money. And so they just keep increasing the debt ceiling, and that's how you build so much national debt. I did not realize this until I'm looking at it right now. Our national debt is at 37.9 trillion. So we're almost at 38 trillion. And that number's moving really fast. It doesn't look like we're slowing down even in the government shutdown. So why things so money that we don't have? And that's why I was very in support of Doge, because clearly something's not working here. Something's not working to where we have way more debt we have way more money that we're spending than we have that we're getting. I will say this, it doesn't look like it's going down too fast, but on the World Debt Clock, USDebtClock.org, the US federal budget deficit is going down. I believe that's a good thing if the deficit is going down, but we still have $37.85 trillion in national debt, but that's also interest as well. And because there's so much interest on this debt, even if we were to get $37.85 trillion, we would still have to pay the interest on that debt. which says right here is $105 trillion for U.S. total debt. Says the U.S. total interest that we have paid is $5.6 trillion. So this debt is just going to keep compounding because of the interest, and we're spending money we don't have, and we're creating money we don't have, raising inflation. Our U.S. debt to GDP ratio is 125%. So even if we used our entire GDP to pay off the national debt in one check, we would still have 25% of our national debt left to pay off. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And I fear that if we don't get this figured out, that it's just going to keep getting worse, and it's just going to keep snowballing until it's too hard to fix anything about it. Last time we had a paid off national debt was under Jaxon in the early 1800s, early to mid 1800s. So I hope that we can get this figured out before it becomes unsolvable. So the last thing I want to talk about, and this just happened yesterday, I believe, late last night or maybe really early this morning. There was an explosion at an explosives plant in Tennessee. In the immediate aftermath, 19 people were missing. This says there's 18 missing, so I'm not sure if they found one, but at least 18 were unaccounted for. And all 18 are presumed dead, which is horrible. I have nothing to say on what caused it or if there was any kind of nefarious activity involved, but still, we need to pray for the families of the deceased. Tragic accident in Tennessee. Yeah. Says from the Washington Post, quote, anyone that was inside that building, ellipses, we can assume that they are deceased at this point, end quote. Tragic situation unfolding in Tennessee. Well, everyone, that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed listening to the Upward Thinking podcast. Tune in next week for the next episode. Go follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And stay tuned for the next episode. I'll see y'all next week.